Welcome to the next episode of the Inside Wayzata podcast. We have a very special guest joining us today, Dr. Robb Virgin, who is are you the superintendent-elect, or what do we call you?
When Dr. Anderson and I were out at schools this week, he kept calling me new guy. So he's like, you got the old guy and the new guy. So I don't know if that was a technical term or...
Yeah. So officially... Dr. Virgin was hired. The Wayzata School Board selected him as Wayzata's next superintendent in March, and he will replace Dr. Anderson, who is retiring at the end of June. So the first question I have for you is, if we're in the grocery store and we see you, whether it's me or someone in the community, what do you want people to call you?
Robb would be great. I hope people feel they know me well enough to call me Robb. And if we're in some setting where something else feels better more comfortable for you, Mr. Virgin or Dr. Virgin, sure. Okay. But I would prefer Robb.
Robb's good. Okay. Yeah. Robb, new guy, whatever you want.
Right.
Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
It's be fun.
Okay. So Chase announced his retirement in September of this last year. Mm-hmm. At what point did you say, that's a job I want?
Yeah. I knew about it immediately through a lot of channels. It was coming in the phone pretty quickly.
Yeah, do you guys have a superintendent text channel?
People who live here, people who work here, superintendent folks, and then shortly after Chase and I connected, of course. But I knew about it immediately, and I've been an administrator in the Lake Conference for the last 11, 12 years, and so I'm familiar with Wayzata, familiar with the excellence that is Wayzata, the commitment that the community has, awesome educators, everything that goes into it. And I've also followed Dr. Anderson's work and learned a lot from watching him. I was a high school principal like him, I was assistant superintendent. And so I've been keeping a close eye on this. And then as I started to really do some research here. Okay, even though I was familiar with the district, of what is the history, what's in that strategic roadmap, try to listen into the school board, listen into this podcast, try to listen in, okay, what is it that they're looking for? And it just really cemented in for me of I think I'm a fit for this. I think my values align. I think my experiences align, my aspirations. And this is a spot where I can really dive in for the long haul. And so it was on the radar. And then as I got more research, it became pretty darn clear.
So I think the other thing that was fascinating for me, and maybe not everyone listening, but the hiring process was very public, and we're kind of following it, working in communications, we're kind of involved in different pieces.
I suppose
there's a pool, and then there's semifinalists and finalists. It's a very public interview process. And for most of us, we don't have to interview publicly in front of an audience. And something that's even being, live streamed. What was it like to go through all that hiring process from, the beginning to ultimately in March when you were selected?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little intense. I'd also say interviews in general are weird. Where you're spending this time talking about yourself, and I think particularly in education, where nothing good is done that doesn't have a team. Nothing I've ever accomplished has not been without a team. You don't do anything alone. And so, but the interview, the way those are structured in the hiring process is you're asked all these questions about what have you done? What would you do? So that's just a little funny. And I grew up in Minnesota, so that's also not how Minnesotans talk. That's not how educators talk. But overall, I appreciated it is for a few reasons. Superintendent is a trust building role. And so people should know how I operate. They should know where my values are, how I think about things. And the other part of it being so public is even before getting even the offer, I was able to learn a lot about the community through the process. So I felt like I had a rolling start there. It was just more research for me too. So I appreciated all that. As I mentioned, the more I researched, the more I felt like this is a fit. And so I really came in to the process with two strategies in mind, or two goals. One is try to stay as authentic as you possibly can, even though the environment is different and you're presenting and you're meeting people and it's a little, different than a day-to-day. Just try to be yourself, because I thought that this was a fit. The other part was I wanted to give as much information about myself as possible so that people knew and that they could make as informed decision as possible. And something else I don't talk about much, but like a guiding principle for myself is that I try to make a commitment to never being outworked. And I think there's so much in our lives and in leadership that isn't within our control, but how much you prepare is. And so I made sure that I was prepared as I possibly could be.
Yeah, what's it like studying for an interview to be a superintendent? I would have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I think the way I approach it was, this job is to serve the community. And are you, what is it that the community needs? And so this isn't about you through the hiring process, but more importantly, once you're actually in the job is how can you actually help kids and how can you help the community and the staff have a better experience and continue all the things that are great here and continue to provide great experiences. And so trying to figure out what is it that they need, not what I can bring and or what I want, and then what can I bring match those needs. So really mainly the preparation is about trying to assess that, and then just the other parts of trying to get good sleep and eat healthier and stuff like that. So you're on top of your game.
I think I remember you were under the weather for the interview too, weren't you?
That was as sick as I've been in a long time. It was horrible. It was high fever. I ended up leaving the house and stayed in a hotel because just to try to get some sleep and not get the rest of my family sick. And so my wife and I have joked like, I hope they like you when they actually see you, when they get to know the real you, not the sleep deprived kind of limping through things. I hope you don't overwhelm them. But
the Michael Jordan flu game is famous for in the NBA Finals.
Yeah,
so that was your.
I wish
your flu game.
I wish.
You alluded to it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think to put simply, why Wayzata for you?
I alluded to it, and it's actually a tough thing to get into a short answer because to me it's so much and it's so important and so clear. But if I had to put a tagline on it, is this district has been so well cared for. You've had vision. The leadership has been a combination of visionary and stable. The board looks at the short and the long term. People who work here are respected across the metro and across the country. These are educators at the top of their field. And the community supports it and believes in education and believes that how you treat kids and the experience that our young people have is the future. And when you have a place that has all those signs of just care, that has rich history, but also is so optimistic about the future, that isn't just, hey, we did that, now we're done. It's like, no, we're proud of that. And how do we just keep being at the top of the heap here is a rare combination. And I've been in a lot of schools across the country, and there's not many like this. And so, it's tough for me to condense that down because it's just so deep of, I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled and feel very fortunate.
Chase, and that's not just through this interview process. How do you know Chase, and how far do you guys go back?
Yeah. So both of us can still picture exactly where we were standing when we met. It was when I was high school principal. We were at the state swim meet. Just happened to be watching our respective schools there. I was high school, Eden Prairie High School, and he was here, of course, and we was met. And at the first conversation we had, I knew he was in the same, he completed the same PhD program I was wrapping up. It's a PhD in curriculum instruction, which isn't like totally rare, but it's a little bit unique for people in our positions. And I knew he had done that because there was a couple of us that were through that. And I was reluctant to tell him like, we've got 2 young ones right now. I don't think I'm going to finish. And he, as you can probably picture, in a very kind but supportive and kind of persistent way, just kept asking questions and helped me rethink about that. And then we stayed in touch through that. And his advice was, you just got to have a plan. You just got to have a plan. And we came up with a plan that was really similar to what he did, actually, of got grandparents involved with the young kids and kind of mirrored what he and Barb had done. And so then you just see each other at different events. We both love going to stuff, different high school events and being in the Lake Conference. And it was probably about once a quarter or so, I would reach out to him or he'd reach out to me, usually me to him, asking, can we get together for a coffee? I'm working on this. I'm thinking about this. And time would kind of go pretty fast as we had a common meeting spot that we would meet at and have an early morning coffee. We both like to get going pretty early, and I just kind of kept in touch that way. And then my oldest has gotten to know him a little bit better because we both are big Gopher football fans, and our tickets are pretty close to each other. So sometimes, and Teddy tends to tag along with me to the games more than others. So we'll sometimes kind of fly by there. So, and all that's just, happened over several years. And we both kept a distance during the interview and selection process here, which kind of makes this even sweeter. To be honest, it was a really odd feeling during the process, because if I was interviewing anywhere other than Wayzata, I would have been talking to Chase every night. Yeah. And to be in the district he knew best, but we weren't talking, was a little bit, different, or just kind of curious. But now being on the other side, it's just, it's awesome. And then our relationship's obviously different now. But the familiarity we've had, and then, and his commitment, and I get that it's a commitment to me, but his commitment's really to the community, because he wants this transition to go really well for all the educators here that he loves, for all the families that he loves, for all the community that's treated him so well and that he's so proud of, and rightfully so. That to have somebody that I know is as committed to the transition as I am, I can't put words to that. Just the feeling is remarkable. I do get excited and realize like we got a big transition coming up here. But I do sleep a lot better knowing that we've got the full community support, including Chase's.
And I got to ask, have you thought about your snow day morning approach? Are we going to do a ride along, or how does this work?
Well, he seems pretty good at it. I don't know if there's
contract.
I don't know. I know he'll be up, so there might be some of that. But yeah, I've learned that approach from him, so I'll maybe ask him to do a first one or two with me. But he's promised me he's not moving out of the country or anything crazy like that, and he'll keep the same cell phone number. So I think our coffees will just be a little bit more frequent.
I remember I was part of a focus group when they were trying to figure out, whether it's like asking the community and staff about, what do you all want in a superintendent?
Must have been interesting.
It was interesting. Yeah. And one thing so MSBA is Minnesota School Boards Association. They were the firm that, helped ultimately lead us to Robb. But one thing that Barb from MSBA said was the average superintendent tenure in Minnesota, it's give or take like 3 years. And, when we look at Dr. Anderson has been here for almost 2 decades. And I think, in your opinion, why is this a destination job?
Probably not too different than what I shared there earlier of, you have a community that's this plugged into public education that wants excellence for each and every student. And not only like wants it, like we all can say we want it, but is willing to put in the work and the investments to make that happen. That's a place where you want to be. And that's a place that can keep people in all the jobs, whether it's superintendent or any other job, to say, this is where I'm going to invest.
Podcaster.
Yeah, podcast. This is where I'm going to invest. And, people move into this district with the schools in mind, and that contributes to the pride that's here, and the pride of like, that's where I want my kids to be. And that's what I want the conversation to continue to be here is, you're on your driveway or parking lot or wherever you might be, is like, yeah, my kids go to Wayzata, and I'm really proud of that. And I think Dr. Anderson's leadership has made it even more of a destination of the combination of visionary and steady leadership, and really the relational leadership that exudes the district. Of this is a warm, welcoming place, and it's been awesome to experience that the last couple of weeks in a different way. Yeah,
and I've heard you say several times, you use the term, long run. Like, you're in it for the long run.
Yeah.
What does that mean for this job?
Yeah. How I think about it is just like, if you're going on like a long drive, or if you're just driving 10 minutes, your whole mindset is different. Like if you're going on a 5-hour drive someplace, like what you do, like what you pack in the car, or what you plan for your stops, what you do before you even get in the car is different than if you're just driving 10 minutes someplace. Or another way I think about it is I'm a runner, and I've explained this to a few people this way using the runner one. I probably should stop, but I'm going to try it again. Because then people have come up to me like, "Oh, you're a runner," and like ask my times. Like, I'm not a real runner. Like, I have a pair of running shoes and I like to run, but I've never been competitive, never will be, and don't care to ever talk about times with anybody. But is if you're going out for, call it a 5-mile run versus a half-mile run, every decision you make is going to be different. Or if it's a 100-yard dash versus something longer. So to me, when you come in for a long run, it's like I'm not afraid to spend too much time on anything, because this is all just investment of getting to know people, making sure we have stuff where the structures that we want in place, taking care of the resources, the stewardship of like, I want to make decisions that my future self is going to thank me for, that we're taking care of us for the long run. One kind of way I think about that a lot and share with teams I've led and lead is, we need to, as school leaders, hold three horizons in our minds at all times. The community deserves that. First one is what do the kids in front of us need today? And that's a commitment I have here as I transition in, is because I'm new guy. No staff member, no kindergartner, no fifth grader or whatever should have a different kindergarten experience because I'm new. We need to make sure it is absolutely excellent. So we need to be continuing to attend to what do kids need today. Second horizon is what does the district need from us 5 years from now? So as we're making decisions, what's going to put us in a really good, stable position 5 years from now? And then the third horizon is what is the employment community? What is our broader community, the employers or larger ecosystem going to expect of our graduates 20 years from now? Like, what are the skills that is going to lead us to a better tomorrow that way? And use those three horizons and try to hold all three at once to make better decisions.
You come from a family of educators. How has your upbringing helped shape who you are and a life working in education? I feel like destiny almost.
Nah, not actually. I do feel like I was pretty much raised in a school. Everyone around me is teachers, and continues to be that way in a lot of our family. And and my dad was, coach of a couple sports. And so you just end up, and that's what you do on Friday nights. And it was a lot of fun. And I was surrounded by people who, realize that like teaching matters, schools matter, how a community cares for its young people, as I kind of alluded to earlier. Like that matters. Like that's our future. At the same time, I didn't always have the greatest K-12 experience. And it was a little like, I know that's what my family's done, but I'm never going to do that. I can't wait to get out of this. And all of that kind of shapes how I approach it. It does feel like a responsibility and a calling. And, I've been at this about 20 years, and I can't think of a better career and a more meaningful career than to contribute to our future through education.
Yeah, so let's dive into the coaching piece. We've heard you enjoy coaching sports. Is that true?
It's mostly true.
In all your free time.
Right.
What parallels can you draw from coaching that you could maybe bring into being a superintendent?
Yeah. I mean, all our coaches, I think that they are some of our best teachers and best educators. And I think they put in so much work and time and do so much good for young people. And the coaching I do now is I coach Teddy, my oldest second grade basketball team this winter. And then I coach Rory, our middle child, or my daughter's soccer team this summer. But so this is not high level stuff, but the parallels are definitely there. I like this question because whether it's coaching, teaching, or leadership, I mean, I think some of your core pieces are still there of high expectations is something that I really believe in. And I really believe that when we set the bar high and when we provide the right supports, there's nothing our kids and students can't do. They're really, when I was high school principal, I would joke with people, but I was serious of if you give a group of committed high school kids some direction and some resources, they really are pretty much capable of what I was. Like they can do a whole lot. So I think high expectations are really important. And like I said, in coaching, teaching, and in leadership, you need to develop a team. Pay attention to team dynamics, and relationships matter. Good feedback is a big part of coaching. Is a big part of leadership and teaching, I think. clear expectations for people, high expectations with clarity and good feedback for support, and knowing everybody's story. I think that everybody likes it when you know a little bit about them and when you're sincere about that. And when you see a team that really gels together where they know each other and they have high expectations for each other and they have collective accountability, that's really the continuous improvement journey. And if I had to describe myself as something, it would actually be as a teacher. Even now, that's how I kind of view the world, and that's kind of how I approach. There's not a day that I don't think about what I learned as a teacher that goes by in my job, and all those have a lot of parallels.
Yeah, I'm imagining giving feedback to a 5-year-old on the soccer field, and
yeah.
How they take that.
It's pretty hilarious. There's a time, yeah. So I have an 8, 6, and 1-year-old, and Tara will joke, like, sometimes I'll sit, basically tell the kids, like, you got to sort this out. And she's like, that sounds like a principal, parenting. This is for you guys to figure out. This isn't my problem. So yeah, it's a little bit different, but
yeah,
there's still similarities.
Dynamics are still there.
Yeah. It's just fun to be with the kids. One of my favorite parts of coaching them is once you're there, there's nothing else you can be doing, which is kind of freeing. It's not like you got a bunch of parents that you're watching out for their kids. And so you better not be on your phone and doing that other stuff. So it's kind of nice of like, sorry, I can't do anything else right now. I'm coaching soccer.
Tell us about your family a little bit. You have 3 kids, married.
Yeah. So my favorite and most important job is that Tara's my wife, and we have Teddy's 8-year-old, and we have 2 daughters, Rory, who's 6, and Maisie, who's 1. Being Tara's husband and their dad is my favorite job, and definitely the one that'll last the longest, right, and be the most important when we look back at everything. But they're awesome. One of my best mentors, or closest mentors, is actually Tara's grandpa. And he meant so much to our family. He passed away about 6 years ago from cancer. It was too soon, but he owned a couple businesses and stuff. And one of the things I always remember him talking about when he ran his businesses and would tell all of us, the grandkids and everyone who would listen, is you lead with your family first, fun second, and work third. And don't always do that, but try to on good days, and I do. And I've got my closet. I have one of his old shirts, next to my dress shirts, and I don't look at it every day, but the days I do, I have a better day than when I don't. Is kind of that reminder. And I do think that crosses into the workplace. I think it's a different kind of family, but we can create a family here too. And when we treat each other that way, and we care for each other that way, that this isn't a transaction. This is something that we're building for a long time together, and really tending to just a better way of being. And hilarious story about him was I think hilarious. He was one of those guys that everyone wanted to be around, big energy, and which isn't always me. But when he had cancer, he was known for giving everybody hugs, big hugs, which definitely is not me. And so we gave him, his daughters gave him these bracelets that said "Hugs Heal" in blue, his favorite color. And so he was supposed to give them to people, instead of spreading the germs in his treatment and whatever. But he would always go up to people, give it to them, and say "Hugs Heal," and then give him a big hug. And just to give you an idea of who he was. But yeah, we have family's a big part of me, and has been and always will be.
You guys, I understand you live close by. What are you most looking forward to as a family of immersing yourself in the greater Wayzata community?
Yeah, those, particularly Teddy and Rory. Maisie, she'll get dragged around more eventually here, but I think they enjoy coming to stuff with me. So I think the community will just get used to me having a couple partners, and I hope they come up and just say hi, and just, we want to do that. I think that's a big part of this job, is connecting with folks in that way. So I hope they feel comfortable doing that. We've got a few community events on our radar already this spring. We've got the Twin Cities Asian Fair in May here. We did the got concerts and games, planned here, and For the record, Tara's favorite restaurant is the Grocer's Table. So you might be able to find her or all of us there. Kids are a coin flip on whether they behave well enough there.
I was going to say, you're brave taking 3 kids at that age out to a restaurant.
There's kind of a funny story with that too. Shortly after I got the job, Chase and I were going to get our families together to go out to dinner. And he's like, you pick, you got the younger kids, they're probably more picky. I said, well, they really like Grocer's Table. And he kind of was like, really? My kids chose Culver's. And thankfully, we didn't choose there. Chase talked us into the Muni because our kids were, we love them. They were very lovable that night. I think they could tell Tara and I were a little nervous. And so they
were feeding off the
energy. They made sure they showed their full personality.
Yeah. I think anyone listening with young kids, it's like, going to a restaurant is not the same experience if you do not have your young children with you.
No.
It's fun nonetheless. Who was your favorite teacher growing up, and what impact did they have?
Yeah. Spanish teacher in high school, Senor Peel. He was, he made class fun, but the biggest part was, I talked briefly about high expectations, you all are going to learn Spanish. You're going to be able to pass this class and do this. And you're going to believe you can do this. And he just never had it out in his mind. And he did the stuff that made it fun and all that. And I don't remember all the specifics there. I just remember how confident he was. Y'all are going to learn. We're going to learn together. And I have been able to, he's still teaching, and I have been able to connect with him throughout my career a couple of times just to say, hey, thanks for believing in me. And thanks for seeing that.
Did you ever test you on your Spanish to make sure you're still...
He'll talk to me a little bit. I can talk a tiny bit still, but not too bad.
Yeah. One thing we heard in your interview is you start every day in a school building. Why?
Yeah. Well, a couple of reasons. One, it's the part of the day you usually have the most control over. So if your goal is to get out and about, I find it just practically best to do in the morning. Kind of same with a lot of other morning routines. If you don't get to it in the morning, you might not get to it. Another is, every job I've had is being present in schools where, we're actually doing the teaching and learning has been my favorite part. And the kind of final reason would be it's a great perspective to start your day with. I think it's very easy. We are running large organizations with, thousands of customers and employees and big budgets and all these things. And we're still a school, and we're educating children. And it's easy because everything's so busy. We have so many meetings and polls and community and all this. It's very easy to let your whole day, week, month get filled up with meaningful stuff, definitely stuff that needs to happen. It's very easy to lose sight of what are we ultimately doing, and why are we here? Why do we get into this? And I just think it provides a better perspective for me going into days. And so, it's an energizing way to start the day too.
How can you tell when you're at a school, the school's thriving today?
Yeah, you do get a feel for schools, don't you? Pretty quickly. I think when adults are out and about, students are greeted by name. I also look at how kids are treating each other. Same with classrooms. I love to see the adult-student relationship. I also love really watch for, are the students collaborating? Is there a strong relationship, kind of peer-to-peer? For the older grades, when kids are moving purposely to class, and when the bell rings or whatever the indicator is for the start of class, the kids are in class and engaged. And when there's a warmth to it, if you're not somebody who's there every day, but you're not greeted as an outsider or anything like that, you can kind of pick up on, and then you always look at it through the lens of, is this a spot where I'd want my kid to be, or somebody that I really care about? Is this a spot for them?
Yeah, we were out shooting a video, and we're out on the playground, and it's chaos, right? It's an elementary school playground, but the kids were hugging and yelling and chasing, and it was just I took a step back, and it's this is the most beautiful chaos you can have, right? Because they're just so happy. It's the purest form of happiness. Absolutely. Kids on a playground.
Absolutely.
Your dissertation, so
you're going back.
We're going back. Yep. So we understand you have your PhD.
Yeah.
Your dissertation was on perceived student voice.
Yeah.
So how do you plan to ensure Wayzata student voices are heard?
Yeah. I think student voice is really important. Kind of the shorthand version of that is there's few things I think we can do that are more impactful for a young person than to make them, believe and show them that their ideas matter, whatever the topic is. And I think that's really important. My career, I've done that in a lot of different ways, whether it was as teacher, administrator of, when I taught middle school social studies, we had essential questions that would drive the unit, and we would write the essential questions together. And, there's a boundary there, right? Because we still need to teach all the standards. So it's not just, hey, kids, go learn whatever you want to learn. It's, well, let's work on these questions together and work on our questioning skills. So it's kind of been a through line, throughout my career, and just a belief of mine. And I think there's a lot of great ways to do it. And it kind of needs to match what you're trying to do. And sometimes that's through pretty straightforward ways like surveys or something like that. I like focus groups, talking to kids about stuff. I think the most impactful is when you're kind of living it day to day, when people can tell when they're around you that they're particularly students that actually want to, like I said, want to hear their ideas. And it's not a grand student voice initiative, but it's, hey, how'd that go for you? How was your season? How was that lesson? What do you think of this? And they come to you with ideas. I think that's probably strategy one. Strategy two is you can hardwire it in a little bit of any major initiative. Maybe you're reworking where the cafeteria is, or you're adopting a new math curriculum, or use those as two examples, that you're asking the question of what role can student voice play in this? And I think sometimes we look at that of like student voice means, we get pulled to one extreme or the other, like either students are involved or they're making the decisions. And like most things, there's a lot of middle ground there. It's like, no, there's like the math curriculum where experts are still going to make those decisions, but let's ask the question during that year or 2 year or 3 year process, whatever it is, make sure we have student voice somehow included in this. And that could be through the surveys, focus groups, observations, interviews. There's crowdsource ideas. It's been one of my favorite student voice strategies is, hey, we've got this problem. Could be a parking problem at a high school or something. We've got this congestion problem. For 2 weeks, I'm going to have this website open, submit your ideas. And the students often, because they experience our school in different ways than we do as adults, they have a different lens. It's not better or worse. It's just a different perspective. And I
there's
think
probably also an ownership piece too. Then if they feel like they're involved, right?
Absolutely.
Like then they're gonna own
absolutely.
It
Yeah, I think that's the second piece. It's their unique lens, the ownership piece, and then I think we're also we're teaching our students, kind of teaching them how to lead too. That you don't just do things to people, that you work with people, and hopefully they're learning some leadership skills through that and modeling that. And that's my goal always is, I won't, with student voice, there's not going to be a this needs to happen. But in stuff I'm directly involved in, I'll ask that question is how do we have student voice in? And then for leaders across the system and other educators and people across, they can ask themselves that too for what they're doing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
It reminds me, we did an episode with Wayzata cafes, and they, a lot of the buildings will do a school choice day or student choice day for the meal. Mm-hmm. And they always talk about the orange chicken's always the favorite go-to for students. So there you go. You'll have to get out and try the orange chicken.
Actually did this week.
Okay,
my
great.
First 1-for-1 for Wayzata cafes. It was great. Chase and Chase said it was the first time he had it. He usually just gets the cheeseburgers. But we had the orange chicken. It was very good.
It was great. There you go. Okay, so Wayzata has a reputation for excellence. Obviously, it's in the tagline, excellence for each and every student. How do you balance maintaining those high standards while also being innovative and willing to take some risk?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually don't see those two as in competition. I get there can be a tension there, but I think, when you're these high performing organizations, school systems or any other organization, I think one of the first things that's really important is to figure out what makes us high performing and what is that's really important that we need to protect. So when you have a high performing organization, which is different from like a startup or a turnaround, it's a different leadership skill set is when you make like small changes, without full context, you can cause pretty big harm. Like the imagery I use in my head is like picture like a speedboat or something. Like you don't have to move the wheel much to make a big change. And so when you've got these high horsepower, organizations like Wayzata, you got to have full context before you just start moving stuff around. So kind of job one is what makes us excellent? What is really important here? And how do we protect that? And that doesn't mean every single thing, but what's core to our identity and core to our brand and experience. And we all know, and I think this is how places become excellent, is we all know we always could do a little bit better. And that really is the continuous improvement journey of, it's not a 180, it's not a wholesale thing. But there's always room on the edges to say, how might that get a little bit better? And I think at the core of that is a community and all of our recognition of, hey, how we got here was doing that. We didn't become an excellent organization by saying, I hope we're going to be excellent, or we're excellent. It came through steady, disciplined innovation, vision, execution that continuously adds value. And that's something I think really Wayzata is an exemplar of across the country. You can call it whatever you want, innovation, transformation, whatever. I like continuous improvement, kind of as the best. I think Wayzata is a really good example of, we just get a little bit better. We just keep getting a little bit better, and that just continues to add value. And that's my intention, is to just say, here's where we're at. We're really going to protect on this, and we're going to be on a continuous improvement journey. And we're going to do that together as a community.
So you were hired in early March. We're now into May. So you more or less a couple months since, you were named the new guy. So since you've been selected for this role, what does, listening and learning look like, or has it looked like, not only since you've been hired, but then as you officially, start full time in July?
Yeah, I'm doing everything I can to be is just connecting with as many people as possible. So met with all of our school board members individually. My eventual direct reports is our strategy leadership team, which is our executive directors and directors, and lead principals, just like 23 or something like that total. Making sure I have one-on-one connection with all of them by the end of the school year. We did the CTE showcase and board meetings, and went to a mayor forum for area mayors a couple weeks ago. A lot of events like that, where it's just slowly being present with people, trying to build familiarity, trying with the goal of hopefully by July 1 that I'm old news. That he's been here a while. I thought he was already here.
And this is all while still doing your job at Eden Prairie, right?
Yeah, we're running a little thin right now, but I'm so engaged and so excited about this that it doesn't feel it's really energizing, because I'm so excited and grateful for the opportunity. July 1, I hope, or I know we'll have a very similar feeling. Maybe we should circle back to get to the specifics of what'll happen in those first official 100 days, but my intention for the community is to feel, whenever you get me, whether it's in a board meeting, at a football game, concert, or just at the grocery store, like yes at the top, that's the same Robb. That you're not going to see a different one pre-July 1 or after July 1. That there's clarity in what he's about. He's trying to connect, and there's a whole lot of care for making sure that we're doing the very best we can for each and every student.
What have you learned so far that has either surprised you or maybe affirmed some things for you?
People will say yes. If I ask them to meet, if I ask them to help with something, that's not a surprise, but maybe an affirmation. But they've just been like, yeah, we want to help. We love what's going on here. We want you to be successful. That warmth that I described from the community, both the district and the larger community, has been awesome.
What was it like? So as you're hired, and from that point we were like a month out from the referendum. What was it like to kind of be named into this role, and then this referendum comes, and it kind of can go one of two ways, right? So what was that like to come in and be a part of that, and now looking forward to some of the opportunities that come with that?
Yeah. What a dream, right? I mean, I couldn't be more grateful for that situation. I felt a little guilty for those. There was probably 5 weeks in between being named and the actual referendum. I saw how hard all you all were working to get that passed. And I kept kind of asking, like, is there something I can do? Don't do it for me. I don't need to get in the way, but I want to do my share here. So that felt a little odd not to be contributing, like I usually would be. But I knew, in that time period and the time period, during the application and interview and stuff like that, regardless of the outcome, this is going to be a big part of my work. Because of the outcome, the work just got a lot more exciting and fun. But if it wasn't, those needs weren't going to go away. We still have growing enrollment. We still have other facility needs so that we needed to address. So I'm glad we're in how do we do this and implement this well. We've got the resources versus, kind of problem solving scramble mode. So one of the many things I'm grateful to Chase for, he's been just amazing through this transition. I need to make sure we mention that, of a lot of knowledge he's sharing, time he's sharing, connections he's making that I'll never be able to thank him enough for.
You mentioned that enrollment growth.
Yeah.
At some point I heard you say enrollment growth is a sign of a great district.
Yeah.
How do we ensure that as we grow, Wayzata grows, and it's growing and growing and growing, that we kind of maintain that, I guess, small school feel, or we don't lose that individual student experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And growth is a sign of a great district. I mean, families move into this area largely because of the school and the reputation, and then not just reputation, but the actual experience that students are having. So kudos to everybody who's made that happen. And that's why we're in the position we're in to need to build more schools. That's not the metro norm right now, or the nationwide norm. So it is a sign of a great experience. And growth is only an asset, really, if quality scales with it. I'd say that's true probably for any organization. If you can go from 2 stores to 10 stores, but the user experience isn't as good as it was when you were 2, that's not sustainable, and that's not what you want to do. So something, thankfully, that we've got going for us here is we've been growing and we have sustained that. So we've got great people, great structures in place that we can build on. My job is not to come in and reinvent those. My job is to learn those, see where the newer context or the context of the next several years might require tweaks, but it's building on top of that. It's not rebuilding. So we're used to growth. We're used to that. And I think at the core of that is knowing each student. And, for the individual student, so, you picture a student that for them, it really doesn't matter. And it shouldn't, if they're in a district or a school of 200 or 2,000 or 20,000, like, we need to know that child and have them have a great experience. And then the next and the next. And that's what that each, and we talk about each and every, like, that's what it means to me is, when a student goes to our new elementary, that's their world. It could be one elementary in the district or the 10th. For them and that family, we just need to make sure we really know them, talk about their strengths, their struggles, their sparks, and their supports is just an easy way to remember it, of just knowing their story, what makes them tick. And quality comes with that. This is the ultimate relationship-based business, is education. And if we can keep those relationships center, it'll be great, no matter how many kids we have.
During your interview, we heard it was brought up several times, the career and technical education piece as part of the referendum. There's this new addition to the high school that'll focus on the CT piece. Given your experience, like, what are you most excited about in terms of what the addition of that space and expansion could look like?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. When I was at that CT showcase at the end of April, and I was familiar with that event, but oh my gosh, that even blew me away. That was amazing.
So I saw like the robots. Like,
oh my gosh. And then like every, I mean, not every, but so many different career paths were there. And there's a college in Georgia that I've always been interested in, never been to, but I've read about them in Fast Company, and they're there. And I'm like, I didn't know you had a Minnesota presence. And they're like, we don't. We flew up last night to do this. It was incredible. So great experience there. So we're in a great spot with CTE already. CTE is so exciting because it's at the nexus of academic excellence, career readiness, workforce development. Like parents, students, teachers, employers can all kind of see themselves in it. And the world is, showing us like, hey, we got to do better here, collectively. So when you get a chance to build this facility, it's going to provide us good entry points to have conversations about that we don't have to create. It's like, we've got this opportunity. Let's do this right with this in mind, not retrofitting something, but really what is industry demanding from us? What does our community need from us right now? Kind of that 20-year horizon that I talked about earlier. And that gets at the core of curriculum instruction, which is, kind of my passion in education, and gets to the teaching and learning experience. And I think that authentic learning is one that comes to mind, meaningful learning, something, those are related terms, but something in that ballpark is, but when kids can use the resources, tasks, purpose, and audience that a professional in that field does. So podcaster, carpenter, historian, mathematician, whatever it might be. But when they're using those resource, tasks, purpose, and audience, then they're doing really meaningful work. And I think when we think of our own school experiences, those are the moments that are sticky. I don't often interview people or talk with people, and they say, talk to me about, a moment that stuck with you or a moment that you learned a lot. Generally not multiple choice tests. Like that is top of the list. Those folks usually can do those because they've had stickier moments. It's not an either or, but we're going to have a real opportunity here to continue to build on what, like I said, what's already in place is amazing, and just to continue to define Wayzata as a destination for excellence.
Yeah, we've done a few episodes on CT specifically, and just what some of the students were doing. Like we had a couple students on. One was doing an internship with NASA. The other was getting real world nursing experience. And then, another episode, we were talking to a mentor in the program that was made graphics for like Netflix or Pixar. And so just like the wide ranging opportunities, it continues to blow me away.
Yeah. The partnerships to have really authentic experiences and really meaningful experiences for students, it takes a community partnership, and we have so many great ones in place here. I think with this new facility, having people be able to enter in and out of the high school better and have that just be swifter and be forefront. And, we have so many people with so many different backgrounds here and expertise, and that can create such great learning experiences for students that really that they'll carry with them.
Well, we heard those partners talk about how much it meant for them too. Like they were talking about like, yes, it's this is an amazing benefit and opportunity to students, but the partners talked about how impactful it was for them and then they could go back to their workplace. And it was just a really cool, like that. It felt more of like a relationship than just a true mentoring thing, but awesome. It was cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we're new lightning round, so we made it through all the tough questions. Best book you've read recently, besides maybe a children's one, like The Bear Snores On or something.
The First 90 Days.
Fitting,
yes. I've read it a couple times at different stops in my career, and each time it served me well, and it has a little different lens, and I liked it again this round.
Great. Favorite school lunch?
Well, orange chicken. I'm one for
recency
one.
Bias.
Recency bias. Toss up orange chicken or like a nacho bowl.
Okay. Favorite subject in school?
U.S. history or U.S. government. That's what I taught the most of.
Okay. Favorite thing to do on the playground?
Swings.
Do you have any secret talents?
No. Not even close. Barely even have hobbies. No, there's no talents.
Running, but not professionally.
Right.
Okay. What's one thing you want every member of the community or staff to know about you on day one?
And I'm all in. I'm completely invested in this, and that I want them and this community to get what they deserve, which is an excellent experience.
He is Dr. Robb Virgin. You can call him Rob. You can call him New Guy. You can call him whatever you want, but prefers Rob. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
This is a ton of fun. I hope I can come back.